This is on page 46 of this book, Universal Prayers, at the top of page 46. Om Bhadram Karneभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागंसस्तनूभिः यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ. May we hear only auspicious sounds with our ears, with our eyes. May we see only auspicious sights with all our sense organs of perception, jnanendriyas. May we perceive the divine presence in all and everything. With all our sense organs of action, karmendriyas, may we perform all actions as His worship. In this way, with a strong body, with a pure mind, and fit sense organs, may we spend the rest of this life granted to us by Him in adoring Him through all our actions. May His blessings be upon us all in all His infinite aspects. Om peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. And may there be peace everywhere in nature. So now we start. We were studying the fourth chapter. I think we completed first 10 shlokas. Now we begin a slightly different topic with the 11th verse. This 11th verse is a very important verse in the fourth chapter. It has two aspects. One important aspect of this 11th chapter is harmony of religions. There are infinite ways to worship God. God is infinite. All those paths lead, though they are different, they lead to the ultimate to lead to the same goal, namely the divine, present within us all. That is one aspect. The second aspect is we worship God in many different ways. Everybody uses a different form to think about God. And in whatever form we worship God, in that form He will bless us. So those two aspects are covered in one verse. So let us do shloka number 11 in chapter 4. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmano vartante manushya partha sarvashah. Here Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, Ye janaha, those people who, ye means those people who, mam yatha prapadyante. Yatha means as, jaisa. As people worship me, prapadyante means they take refuge in me or they worship me. As people worship me, tathaiva aham bhajami, tam bhajami. In the same way as they worship, in the same way I respond to them, I bless them. In whatever way they worship. Sarvashaha manushyaha mama vartmanu vartante. Vartman means the path leading to some goal. In whatever way people worship me, they all are worshipping me. I am the ultimate goal of all worshippers, though they may be worshipping in wildly different ways. There is a very famous verse in the Shiva Mahimna Stotram. Sometimes we chant it as the opening Shanti prayer. And in his very famous lecture in 1893 at the Parliament of Religion, Swamiji quoted that verse in English translation. The verse says, so many rivers are flowing towards the ocean, each river following its own course, sometimes straight, sometimes crooked. But all those rivers, though they are flowing in different directions, they all ultimately end up in the same ocean. In the same way, people are worshipping God in many, many different ways. Still, all of them reach the same goal, namely the divine God. So that is the gist of this verse. Ye mam yatha prapadyante, those as people who worship me in any way, as they worship me, tathaiva aham bhajami, don bhajami, in the same way I respond to them. That is the first line. Sarvashaha manushyaha mama vartma anuvartante. They follow my path. They all lead to the same goal, no matter how different their methods of worship are. So here there are two aspects to be noted. One is the way people worship, the ways people worship God are different from person to person. If there are two devotees of Rama, they think of Rama in their own personal way. They worship Rama in their own personal way. They need not be identical. The way in which people worship, in the same way he will respond. That means if I worship God as Rama, he will appear to me as Rama. He will bless me as Rama. If I worship God as Krishna, he will bless me as Krishna. So anybody can worship in any way, but in the same way in which they worship, in that way he will respond. That is one meaning of this shloka. So there is need be no quarrel about the way in which we worship God. No one should say, I worship God as Rama, everybody should worship God as Rama only. It's not necessary. It's only in Hinduism, Vedanta, that this outlook is promoted. Many different ways of worship, many different ways of worship as are worshippers. This is what Sri Ramakrishna said when he said, Jotomat Totopat. As many paths, so many, as many seekers, so many paths. As there are so many seekers, there are so many paths. Swamiji also said the same thing. Each person can carve out his own way to reach God. So there is no fight about which path is better. All paths lead to the same goal. That's what his second line he says, Sarvasha Manushyaha Mama Vartmana Vartante. So there need be no quarrel about which path is better. All paths lead to the same goal, namely to one divine presence in all. That is one meaning. As we worship, so he responds. The second meaning of this shloka is the purpose for which people worship God are different from person to person. Everybody is not seeking liberation. Actually, very few people seek really liberation. They want something closer, something more immediate. In the 7th chapter, there are 3 shlokas. We will study them when we get there. The 3 shlokas are important because there, Bhagavan himself recognizes the different motivations with which people worship him. Everybody does not worship God for the same, asking for the same thing. Everybody is not interested in liberation. Some are, many are interested in more immediate goals. So these different goals or motivations which people worship God are mentioned in the 3 verses in the 7th chapter, verses 16, 17, 18. So I'll summarize the reasons why different reasons why people worship God. In the 16th verse, chapter 7, Sri Krishna says, 4 kinds of people worship me with different motivations. Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukatino arjuna. Chaturvidha jana, 4 kinds of people. Mam bhajante, they worship me. All of them are worshipping God in their own way, in their own form, the chosen form. But the motivations may be different from person to person. What are the various motivations? 4 kinds of motivations are explained by the Lord in that 16th verse, chapter 17. Chaturvidha jana, 4 kinds of people, depending on why they worship God, the reason why they worship God. The first reason is artha. Arti means difficulty, suffering, some kind of adversity. Artha is one who is in distress. Any kind of problem. People have all kinds of problems. Health problem, financial problem, family problem, job problem, all those things we don't have to enumerate. People have all kinds of problems. So when a person is facing adversity, having some problem, he or she worships God. They take other measures too, remedial measures, preventive measures they do. They also worship God. Seek God's help in solving the problem. Such people are called arthas, people in distress. So their prayer is, oh Lord, please make me free from this problem. I have this problem. Please make me free from this problem. So when people worship God with that motivation to become free from problem that they are having, here Bhagavan says, I will address their problem. It is just like it's like a child asking the mother for a cookie, mother will give a cookie. If the child wants something else, water to drink, mother will give water to drink. Whatever the child needs, that the mother will give. In the same way, here Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, whatever they seek, that I shall grant. Second aspect. First aspect is, in whatever way they worship, in that way I respond. Second aspect is, whatever they seek, that I shall grant. So what are the other reasons why people worship God? Artha jignasu. Jnana means knowledge. Jignasa means desire for knowledge. Here, knowledge of God, not necessarily knowledge of the world, though that also people seek. Jignasu means one who has desire for knowledge of God. So people pray to God, oh Lord, reveal your true nature to me. I want to know you. That is a devotee's, jnani's prayer. Prayer for knowledge. So those who pray for knowledge, he will grant knowledge to them. Those who pray for relief from problem, they will give relief from problem. 2 reasons. Artha jignasu. Third reason why people worship God is artharthi, the third kind of person. Artha, the word artha has 3 meanings. Artha means meaning. What is the artha of this word means? What's the meaning of this word? Artha means meaning. That is not the meaning we are interested in here now. Second meaning of artha is money, vittam, specific meaning. Artha means money. Third meaning of artha is any object that one wants to have. If I want to have a job, then job is my artha. We call purushartha, the goal of life. So third person is artharthi, a person who does not have something is missing from a person's life, and such a person prays to God, seeking that missing thing in his life, hoping that if that missing thing is provided, supplied by God, his life will be happier, better, fuller. It may be anything that a person does not have, wants to have. It can be a job. A jobless person wants to have a job. There's no money to buy food. So he's seeking God's help to find a job. It's all right. God will help him to find a job. Second kind of thing people ask, job. A person may want health. A person may want a child. Childless couple, they want to have a child. The desire for progeny is very strong in all beings, not only people, animals also. So like that, whatever they don't have, they seek that from God, hoping that if that missing thing is supplied, their life will be happier, better, fuller. Such people are called artharthis, seeking something that they want to have. There is a fourth kind of people, motivation, different motivation which they worship God. They are jnani, artha, jignasu, and artharthi, jnani. Jnani does not seek anything at all. He does not seek, even if he has a problem, he will not ask God to remove the problem. Even if he has no money, he does not ask God to provide money. He will simply pray to God out of pure love for God, seeking nothing at all from God. That kind of people are very rare. So that is the fourth reason, fourth motivation with which people worship God. So here Bhagavan Sri Krishna is saying in the 11th verse, whatever people seek from me, relief from distress, or something that they want to have that they don't have, or knowledge, or they don't seek anything at all, I shall provide whatever they seek. Generally speaking, people seek two kinds of things in general. You can generalize. First is called Abhyudaya. This term Abhyudaya comes again and again. Abhyudaya means worldly progress, something that is relating to this worldly life, a job, a money, or a child, or a health, or something. People seek that one. That is called Abhyudaya, required for daily life. One thing people. Second thing people seek rarely, or not rarely, but less frequently, is called Nishreyasa. Nishreyasa means liberation, moksha, the highest good that one can seek. Abhyaya, worldly progress, worldly needs. Nishreyasa, liberation. These two things people seek. More people seek Abhyaya. Some people seek both. Some people seek Nishreyasa. So here in this verse, the Lord is saying, whatever they seek, that I shall provide. One meaning. Second meaning is, in whatever way they worship me, in the same way I shall respond. Hanuman always wanted to see God only as Rama. He was not worshipping Shiva or Krishna or Vishnu. Rama was his chosen ideal. So when it said, once he went to Mathura, Hanuman and Krishna and Rukmini were there. So Krishna says to Rukmini, quickly change yourself into the form of Sita. I shall change myself into the form of Rama. Because Hanuman wants to see us only as Rama and Sita, not as Krishna and Rukmini. So Krishna transforms himself into Rama's form and Rukmini appears as Sita, and Hanuman was very happy. It is some story like that is there. That means in whatever way we worship God, He will respond to us in the same way in which we worship Him. Therefore, everybody is free to worship God in their chosen, personal, preferred way. No need to say my way of worshiping God is better. Krishna is the only God. If you worship Shiva, you will not go to heaven. That we should not say. That Hinduism, Hindu Dharma, Sanatana Dharma does not allow that. Infinite are the ways to reach God. That is the speciality of Sanatana Dharma, Vedanta, Hinduism. Many other faiths, we don't talk about other faiths, but they don't have this kind of broad viewpoint. That is not our problem. We are blessed that we have this kind of Sanatana Dharma in our heritage. So this shloka number 11 is important shloka. To summarize again, Bhagavan is promising here I shall respond to my devotees in the same way in which they worship me. One. Second thing is, whatever the devotees sincerely seek, that I shall provide. Everybody is not seeking liberation. Those who seek liberation, they will get liberation. Those who want other things, they will get other things. This is the gist of this sloka number 11. So before we leave this sloka, let me chant it once again. It's a very important sloka. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tamstathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmano vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. Before we leave this sloka, let me say one more point. Sri Ramakrishna taught us what we should seek from God. Should we seek money? Should we seek health? Should we seek a property or bigger house? What we should ask God when we pray to God? He said, don't ask anything from God except one thing. What is that one thing he wanted to ask God? Pure devotion. Devotion only we should ask, not for any worldly thing. Other things he will provide without our asking. God knows what we need. We don't have to remind him. He's watching us around the clock. So let us leave it to him. Whatever he provides, with that I'll be happy. I'm not going to ask for this and that. But I'll ask one thing. Always grant me pure love to your lotus feet. I want to draw your attention to one page in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. If you're interested, make a note of that page. That's page number 731 in the English New York edition of Gospel, 731. There, Sri Ramakrishna prays to Divine Mother, asking only for pure devotion, nothing else. That's what he wanted all of us to ask God for. He says, "O Divine Mother, I have taken refuge at the holy feet. Ami tomar sharanagato sharanagato. I have taken refuge at your holy feet. I don't have any other desire. I don't want bodily comforts. Lokamana China, I don't want worldly fame. Animadi Ashta Siddhi China, I don't want the 8 occult powers, 8 siddhis. I want only pure devotion to the lotus feet. Tamarshi Padapade Ama Shuddha Bhakti Bhav. To your lotus feet, you grant me pure love only. Amala Ahayutiki Bhakti. Pure, unmotivated devotion. Ami bhajanheen, sadhanheen, jnanaheen, bhaktiheen. I don't have devotion. I don't have knowledge. I don't know how to pray. I don't know how to worship. I don't have anybody other than you. I don't anybody to whom I can approach. You are the only my refuge. Tamarshi Padapade Amai Shuddha Bhakti Dao. Grant me pure devotion to your lotus feet. That's the only thing you have to pray from God. Other things he will provide without our praying. We leave it to him. He has promised again and again that I shall provide what my devotee needs. Yogakshema Mahamyaham, famous promise of Sri Krishna in the 9th chapter, Sloka 22. 9:22, Sri Krishna said, whatever my devotee needs, that I shall provide, I shall protect. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam mahamyaham. Yes, promised. Those who are ever devoted to me, pray to me, whatever they need, I shall provide. Yoga means providing what is needed. Kshema means protecting what is already there. So we leave it to the Lord. What I need, he provides. What I need, he will protect. I don't have to remind him. He knows better than I know what I need. I may be asking for something wrong which will not be good for me. So let us not tie his hands. Let us only ask for only one thing that is worthwhile asking. namely pure devotion. That is Sri Ramakrishna's instruction. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gave the same instruction. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he composed a very famous hymn called Shikshashtakam. Shiksha means instruction. Ashtakam means hymn containing 8 stanzas. In those 8 stanzas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us, all of us, he gave instructions to all of us, when we pray to God, what we should ask from God. What we should not ask, what we should ask. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave clear instructions. There he said, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadesha kamaye, mama janmani janmanishvare, bhavatad bhakti rahai tuki tvayi. Very beautiful prayer. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us what we should ask from God, what we should not ask from God. Both he told. He says, Jagadesha, O Lord of the universe, na dhanam kamaye. I don't want wealth. What to do with wealth? Minimum necessities he will provide. More than minimum necessities, there is no need to gather wealth. Na janam kamaye. Janam means people following, big fan club, followers, disciples. I don't want all of those things. Na sundarim kamaye. I don't want a beautiful spouse, because beauty is temporary thing. Real beauty is inner beauty, which is permanent. The sundarim kamaye. But I want one thing from you. Mama janmani janmani. In all my births, in my present birth, and if I have to take more births in the future, in all my future births also, Mama janmani janmani, Tvayi Ishware, in you, O Lord, ahetuki bhakti bhavata, may have pure, unmotivated devotion. Hetu means reason or motivation or cause. Devotion with cause, with motivation is not the highest kind of devotion. Devotion motivated by some reason from desire is one kind of devotion. It's also good, but ahetuki bhakti means pure devotion seeking nothing from God. That kind of devotion only I want from you. That is what we should pray from God when we pray to God. So that is sloka number 11. Whatever we seek, that we get. In whatever way we worship God, in that way He will appear to us. Very nice sloka. Now we go to sloka number 12. This is follow-up of the same. Kangshanta karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devata kshipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. Kangshanta means those people who are desirous of something. Desirous of what? Karmanam siddhim kangshanta. Seeking result of their action. Karmanam siddhim kangshanta. Seeking success. Siddhi means success. Seeking success in their effort, in their work. People who perform worship. Iha devataha yajante. Those people who worship gods, perform sacrifices. Yajna. Yajanta means those who perform yajna, sacrifices. Seeking result from that sacrifice. Seeking something tangible from their worship, from their yajna. Such people will get what they seek. But those are limited things people seek. Manushe loke, kshipram hi manushe loke, siddhir bhavati karmaja. Karmaja siddhi means success coming from the work. Karma ja. Ja means arising from. Result arising from work will come quickly. If you do something, result will come fairly quickly in this world. So what generally people do, they worship various deities. For example, somebody has appeared for an exam. bar exam or USMLE or some other board exam or something or CPA. And then before the exam, they worship Goddess Saraswati, seeking success in their examination. That's a limited goal. It's still good. People worshiping God for any reason is good. It's not bad, but it is limited outlook. I want success in this exam. So those who seek that kind of limited objectives from their worship, they get that one too. Some people who want, say, money, they worship goddess Lakshmi. Some people who are starting a new project, they worship Ganesha, seeking freedom from obstacles. Like this, people worship God for limited objectives that they will get. Kshipram Vimanushe Loke Siddhir Bhavate Karmaja. But the instruction that we have been given by Sri Ram Krishna, other teachers like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not to seek these things. Worldly progress, success in this and that, and money and child and family and promotion. Why seek all? You're going to the highest authority. You're seeking some small thing. Just like going to the president of the company asking for $5. He's the highest person, he can grant you many more things. You are seeking something small. So when you go to God, ask for something, ask for the highest thing. Why ask for a small thing? You are going to the highest authority. Seek for the highest price. He will give you, he is ready to give you. Seek pure devotion, seek knowledge, seek renunciation, seek liberation. That he will give. Why seek something small? That is the instruction. Now the topic changes. Very interesting topic comes in sloka number 30. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashaha tasya kartaramapi mam vidya kartaramavyayam. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashaha tasya kartaram api mam vidhi akartaram avyayam. Vidhi means no, understand. So Bhagavan is saying here, maya srishtam, by me was created. What was created? Chaturvarnyam, 4 categories of people. 4 categories of people were created by me, maya srishtam. On what basis? Guna karma vibhagashaha. On the basis of guna and karma. Guna means the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Depending upon which of these 3 gunas is dominant in a person's personality, that person belongs to a different category. We'll study that in detail now. This sloka requires detailed study. Karma means what kind of activity a person gravitates towards. People gravitate to different activities. If you talk to some 10th grade child, what do you want to study when you want to go to college? He will say, I want to study aeronautical engineering. Or somebody say, I want to study cyber security. Some child will say, I want to study mechanical engineering. They're already in high school. They're only in high school, but they're already gravitating to certain. They will change along the way as they go to college, but they have some general tendency to go to in some direction. What they want to do in life when they grow up. That tendency is there in everyone. That is karma. That comes from the previous samskaras, also present environment. Guna karma vibhagashaha. Based upon guna and karma. Guna means sattva, rajas and tamas. We all have tendencies. Depending upon which of these is strong in your personality, we belong to one category or the other. Karma means our the kind of work we gravitate towards. That is first line, important line. We'll have to study that in some detail. The second line is easy. Tasya kartaram api, though I am the creator of that categorization, mam akartaram midhi, know me to be the not doer of that karma. God has no kartritva. That second line will finish first. First line will come back. Though I am the creator of these four categories, I am not the creator. Know me to be not the creator. How can you do something and say I am not the doer? Because God has no kartritva. I give an example why God has no kartritva. We have kartritva, and I do something, I do something. I know that I'm doing something, I'm responsible for that action, the consequence of that action. But that's not the same for the Lord. Why? Give the example of the sun. Sun is not doing anything at all. He's simply shining because his nature is to shine. That also is not an effort. He's not working hard to produce so much. He just shines. That is his nature. That's his dharma. He simply shines. But because of his presence in the sky, so many things happen in this world. It's only because of sun's light. All the plants grow, animals live, people live, rivers flow, rain happens, everything happens only because of sunlight. He's causing all these things, but is he doing any of these things himself? No. His very presence makes things happen. So it is God simply is there because of his power. All this categorization happens in nature. Things happen in nature. He's responsible ultimately because his presence is what causes all these things to happen, but he has no doership. He's not doing anything willfully, intentionally. Oh, I'm going to make this plant grow. There's no such volition for that. So that is second line. But first line is where we have to study really carefully. What is the basis upon which people fall into different categories in any society? Two things we have to, two criteria we have to understand: guna and karma. So these are explained in the 18th chapter. Who is a brahmana? Who is a kshatriya? Who can be a vaishya? And who is a shudra? Based upon what? Definitely not on the basis of heredity. That's something that mistake happened many centuries ago, because you started classifying people based upon their birth. A Brahmana was one who was to follow a certain lifestyle. But his child need not follow the same lifestyle as his father. He may do a different kind of lifestyle. So he need not necessarily be a Brahmana. So it's not hereditary. So let us understand what it is that makes a person a Brahmana. What it is that makes a person a Vaishya or Shudra, etc. If you understand that, then all the misunderstanding and quarrels and fights will cease. So let us, the answer is given in the Gita. So we have to go back a little bit further in the 18th chapter. Who is a Brahmana? What makes a person a Brahmana? You have to understand. So let us go to shloka number 42 in chapter 18. A person who to be called a Brahmana has to have these following qualities. Chapter 18, verse 42. Shamo damas tapas shaucham shantirarjavane vacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. If a person, list of qualities are given here. If a person has these qualities, does these kinds of things, then he is a Brahmana. A person who may be born in a Brahmana's family but does not do any of these things is not a Brahmana. Not by heredity, but by quality and work, guna and karma. So what is it makes a person a Brahmana? Let us study 1842. There Bhagavan says, first of all, Shama. Shama means restraining of the mind. Mind wanders here and there. That's the nature of the mind. A person who can control the mind, make it dwell on one topic, concentrate on one topic, is a Brahmana, one quality. Second quality of Brahmana is Dhamma. Dhamma means controlling sense organs. Sense organs also roam about in different directions. Controlling the sense organs and making them focus on one point is second quality, Shama Dhamma. Tapa means austerity. Different kinds of austerities are there. Austerities of the body, mind, and speech. A person must do all these kinds of austerities, tapa. Then he is a Brahman. Shamodamastapaha, Shaucham, purity of the mind and purity of external purity, body, environment, etc. Important quality. The Shaucham, Shantihi. Shanti means endurance, ability to bear all kinds of adversities calmly without complaining, without lamenting. Shanti, forbearance. Arjavam. Arjavam means straightforwardness, transparent personality. Whatever the mind thinks must be same as what the speech says, must be same as what action is, what that we show in action. Thinking something, saying something else, and doing something else is not Arjavam. Such a person cannot be a Brahmana. Jnanam, knowledge of the self. Vijnanam, experience of God consciousness. Austikyam, firm conviction that there is divinity and divinity God can be reached. Brahma karma swabhavajam. All these qualities a person has, he is a Brahmana. Regardless of in what family he is born. If a person is born in a Brahmana family, but chooses to join the Air Force, then he cannot be a Brahmana. He is not doing any of these, doing something else. It is equally important. Somebody has to protect the country, but he becomes a Kshatriya by nature. See, Brahmana is defined by what he does, qualities, action, not by where he is born. So that is where we have to understand clearly what this caste system is. A lot of misunderstanding about caste system. Here the clarity is given here. Guna karma vibhagashaha. Depending upon guna, sattva, rajas, tamas, a Brahmana must have sattva pradhana, mostly must be sattvic in nature. A Kshatriya has to be rajasic in nature. A Kshatriya person who does not have enough rajas cannot be a Kshatriya because it requires different kind of ability and strength. To work in a battlefield, one has to be very strong and have rajas in him, energy. That is the quality of a Kshatriya. So there is no superior or inferior. See what happened, we assign values to this. People wanted privilege. I'm a Brahmana. I'm studying the Vedas. I'm teaching the Vedas. So I must be respected. I must be shown respect. I'm superior. That kind of desire for privilege is what caused the problem. There's no higher or lower. Every position is required in a society. A janitor's work is as important as the CEO's work in a company. Everything is equally important, but they are different in nature. Abilities are different, tendencies are different, activities are different. So that is one. Who can be a Brahmana? Guna karma vibhagasha. Now, what does it take to a person to be a Kshatriya? It is described in Shloka number 43, chapter 8. Everybody cannot be a Kshatriya. So 43 says, who can be a Kshatriya? Shauryam tejo dhritirudaksham yuddhe chapyapalayanam dhanamishvara bhavascha kshatram karma svabhavajam. Kshatram is Kshatriya. Kshatram karma. Kshatriya's qualities are Shauryam. Lot of strength and courage must be there. If a person is afraid, then he cannot go and work in the battlefield. In Iraq or Afghanistan, somewhere there is no safety. Danger can come at any time from any direction. If you are afraid, you can't go there. You have to find some other job to do. You can find a clerk as a clerk in an office, you're safe, everything protected. You can't be a Kshatriya. Shauryam is necessary. Teja means power. Lot of power must be there. Dhriti means resolution, firm resolution. If the danger, you cannot run away. Daksha means skill in action. Yuddhe chapi apalayanam, not running away from yuddha, because very dangerous in the battlefield, very dangerous. So if a person is afraid by nature, he can't stand in the battlefield. Yuddhe chapi apalayanam, that quality is very important for a Kshatriya. Dhanam must be able to give charity also. Kshatriyas, people who are in charge of ruling, the ruling class, they were also required to do charity. Dhanam, Ishvara Bhava means lordliness. Leadership quality must be there. You must be able to lead a whole army, whole country. That quality of leadership is very important in Kshatriya. If you don't have it, come be a Kshatriya. Kshatram karma svabhavajam. So a person who has all these qualities and tendencies, that can be the person can be a Kshatriya. So like that, for all these categories of people in a society, the categorization was made based upon the qualities, tendencies, and activities. That is how the caste system was made originally. But then, because of social problem and this desire for a privilege, lot of misunderstanding and ill treating the people with low in. If a Brahmana should be given more respect. If somebody is a janitor, he is a different category. That kind of problem came in society. Every work is important. Nothing is dispensable. Everything has to be done in a society. Just like a puzzle. In every puzzle, there may be 1,000 pieces in a puzzle. Every puzzle has a particular place. Without it, the puzzle is not complete. It may be, some may be very odd in shape, some may be rectangular, some may be in very odd shape, but every piece has a place in the puzzle to complete the whole picture. Society is like that. Every person's work is needed, necessary for the whole society to remain harmonious and peaceful. Then, sloka number 44 describes the qualities of Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So, 44, chapter 18, there Bhagavan says, Krishi Gauraksha Nijam Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam. Very important function. Krishi means agriculture. Without agriculture, food growing, what people will eat? Everybody can Brahmana chanting Vedas all the time, but where is the food? Somebody has to go and work in the field, produce food for the Brahmanas to eat food. Everybody's work is important in society. Gauraksha means animal husbandry, bringing up animals, cows, and other animals. Vanijam, trade and commerce. If food is grown, if there is nobody to transport them and supply them, make it available to the consumers, then food will not reach the consumers. Somebody has to take care of that part. Also, Krishna Gunding Vanijam, Vaishya Karma Svabhavajam, Paricharyatmakam, service industry. Service industry, without it, how can society survive? Somebody has to be building construction. If everybody is working in the office, then who is to put the bricks together and make the building? Carpenters are needed, electricians are needed, bricklayers are needed, masons are needed. All these people are providing essential service. Otherwise, how do we have anything? Unless people work with their hands, service industry. They are the most essential part of society. So like this, coming back to sloka number 13, Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashaha. Based upon guna and karma, not upon heredity. Person can be born in a Vaishya family, but he may become a Vedic scholar. Then he becomes a Brahmana by profession, by ability, by work. He doesn't have to remain a Vaishya. That flexibility is there. Tasya kartaramapi mam vidya kartaramaudyayam. So that is the sloka number 13. Sometimes it is likely to cause misunderstanding, but clearly meaning is explained here in the 18th chapter. Who can be a Brahmana? who can be a Shudra, Vaishya, or Kshatriya. Everybody has very crucial function for the whole society to function properly, successfully, everybody to live happy. No one is less, no one is more. I give an example. How even a janitor can reach liberation. To reach liberation, one does not have to be a Brahmana. Not necessary. In the earlier days, the kings were the teachers of Vedanta, not the Brahmanas that much. Things like Janaka, Ashwapati, they were the teachers of Vedanta. I myself seen such a king. The last king of the Mysore state, now it is called Karnataka. Before independence in 1947, India consisted of small princely states. I saw the prince, I saw the king. Every year he used to come on a procession. That king was a Vedantic scholar. He wrote many books on Vedanta. He was a promoter of music, arts, scholarship, Vedic study. He himself wrote many books on Vedanta. Kings were scholars also. They were promoters of all branches of knowledge. Kshatriya, they protected the Vedanta Dharma in our ancient tradition. So how can a janitor achieve liberation? He cannot study Vedas. He cannot go to school because he has no money to go to school. He has to start working. In Dakshineshwar, there was a janitor. His name, you have heard the story, I've told before. His name was Rasika. His job was to sweep the floor in Dakshineshwar. That's what he was doing. That was his job. And being a person with no education, sometimes he used to get drunk also. They don't have anything else. So one day, he was lying on the Dakshineshwar ground. He was drunk. Sri Ramakrishna came that way. I didn't notice. His name was Rasika. Rasika, why have you taken so much liquor? The Rasika is a very innocent person. He told what happened. Rasika said to Sri Ramakrishna, sir, 2-3 days ago, somebody's mother died and they asked me to clean up their home. I did some cleaning up. They gave me some money. With that money, I bought some liquor. I drank. I don't drink every day because nobody's mother dies. That's what he said. That's what he said to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna said, don't drink that much hereafter. But Rasika was doing his job as a janitor, keep the ground clean. He used to notice that every day, many people used to go to Sri Ramakrishna from the city. All the educated people, scholars, and everybody used to go to his room. They would discuss all philosophy, which he didn't understand. He could not even go inside because he was a janitor. Can't enter inside the Sri Ramakrishna's room in the temple. It was inside the temple. He would notice all these things. Sometimes they used to sing and dance. So he was feeling bad. I'm only cleaning the ground. Those people are seeing this Mahatma, Sri Ramakrishna. I can't even talk to him like this. He was feeling bad. One day, Sri Ramakrishna was coming alone from the Panchavuti side going towards his room. So, and Rasika was working there. So he sees the opportunity. So he fell at Sri Ramakrishna's feet. Rasika fell at Sri Ramakrishna's feet and prayed to him with tears, and he says, Baba, amaki hove. What will happen to me, Father? I don't have any education, nothing like that. He cried. Sri Ramakrishna, full of compassion, he said, don't worry. You will reach the goal. Just do one thing. When you go home, plant some tulsi plants in front of your house, cottage, wherever you stay. And every day, sit down near the tulsi plants and then chant God's name. That's all you have to do. You don't have to study scriptures and Vedas and Vedanta, nothing. Just chant God's name every day in front of your house near tulsi plant. And I will come, he said. So that's what he did, Rasika did. Simple faith. No education, no mantra, no scripture study, Upanishad, Veda, nothing. In the meantime, Sri Ramakrishna passed away. And Rasika retired from the job, went to his cottage and started praying every day as told by Sri Ramakrishna. In course of time, he became sick, old and sick. Then he knew that he was going to die. So on one day, he was sleeping inside lying down on the bed inside the house. Sick, he was sick. Morning, he told his wife and children, put my bed outside in front of my house near the tulsi plant. Today he is going to come and take me forward. They didn't understand. He's talking something, he's very sick. They didn't understand what he was saying. Something in who is coming? Nobody is coming. Put my bed outside, I'm insisting. So they put his bed outside near the tulsi plant. And he said, bring one asana, he's coming now. Who is coming now? What asana for whom? They didn't understand. But he insisted. So they brought asana and put next to his bed. Then he lay down there, chanting God's name, Sri Ram Krishna came. And he held Rasika's hand, took him forward. That's how he gave up his body. He died. So God will bless anybody. Doesn't have to be a Brahmana, but he has to do his job diligently, nicely, as worship, as offering with love. That's all it takes. That will be explained in the sloka number 45, 46. By doing our own karma, Kshatriya karma, Vaishya karma, Sudra karma, whatever karma that I have to do by my nature, if I do that very work, I will reach liberation. That will explain in the 1846. Next time we'll study that one. How by doing our own karma, even a janitor can reach the goal, highest goal of life, by doing his janitorial work with diligence and devotion. Does not have to be a Brahmana to reach liberation. So all these things are explained in the subsequent chapters. So this clarifies the caste system, which is subject to so much misunderstanding and fighting and social unrest, all unnecessary, all created by people seeking privilege and saying, I'm superior, you are inferior. Because the janitor, you are inferior. Because I'm a Vedic scholar, I'm superior. That kind of problem started. There's nothing like that in the scriptures at all. Every job is crucial for the well-being of the whole society. By doing one's own job, sakarmana bhyarcha, siddhim indati manavaha. By doing our own job, whatever it is, by doing it as worship, I will reach the highest goal. That is the gist of this sloka number 13. So we shall stop here. And if you have questions, you can ask me now, or you can send me email.
Swamiji, I have a question. Gita starts out with Varna Sankara and all that. Arjuna saying, if you don't follow all that, your ladies will do all the Varna Sankara and all that. Apura, it goes back and says, okay, you can't marry people from outside because that's different. So first of all, a computer professional, is that now based on what Gita says? Is that a Sudra? And what is a doctor? Is that a Vaisya? And then if you're born into a Brahmin, do you marry a computer professional? Then do you become whatever that is? Or what is, how do you answer that, Swamiji?
The marriage is a different thing. There, the question of culture and practices will come into consideration. So, if a Brahmana marries a Brahmana family, not depending upon birth again, depending upon guna karma, then there will be harmony in life. There will be a harmony in the family life. But if a person with a very, say, rajasic tendency, tamasic tendency, marries a person with a sattvic tendency, there will be no harmony in that family life. That is why certain rules are made for society. Nothing to do with spiritual life or liberation.
So what is a computer professional considered based on Gita? A computer person, is the computer person a Sudra or?
We can't categorize Sudra, it's a service profession. It's very essential. Okay. Without computer, no society, this cannot run at all.
They're doing and what about doctor? Is that also service? So is that also?
Profession is crucial for well-being of society. There are no doctors, how will we live?
Right. So I mean, based on
without computer people, without doctor, without janitors, without trading people, everybody is necessary. They play their part. Then no higher or lower.
Right, right. So any service is considered Sudra.
Liberation by doing your own work properly. So where is the problem? Everybody can reach liberation. Doesn't have to be a Brahmana. Doesn't have to study Vedas. one can do one's own work diligently, lovingly, as required in the Gita, karma, as karma yoga offering, as worship without attachment, then you will reach liberation. So where is the need to change or do anything? Do your own work. Swakarmanatama bhyarcha. 1846.
Swamiji, I have a question about the caste system in India. Is getting from bad to worse in Hindus. Is there any hope of things improving?
Is there any what?
Any hope that things will improve?
With education, yes, things will change. They are changing slowly. These things are very slow to change because long habit over centuries cannot go away in a short time. But the things are changing. With more education, with more broader outlook, it's becoming less, but it will go.
Swamiji, I have these today, the two slokas are so important. The first one was chapter, I think 11 and then 13. So
Yeah.
I do not want to take too much time. So there are so many people. I think what I will do, I have serious questions and I will send you email.
Okay.
That is the best thing.
Okay, I'll take answer.
Thank you.
Sanjay, I have a quick question. You mentioned this Devashish. Siddhir Bhavati.
Yeah.
You know, when you say Siddhir Bhavati Karmaja, so therefore, through work alone, we can have Siddhi. So therefore, if we just focus on our work and not really expecting the result, that's what, based on Gita.
You mean success.
Is that, I mean, because you read today, you know, Siddhir Bhavati Karmaja.
Siddhi.
Is that what it is exactly? But the context is a little bit different.
Siddhi here means success in one's work. Siddhi, Siddhya Siddhyo Sama Bhutva 248.
Yeah.
Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. A Siddhi means failure. So whichever happens when we don't know, we have no control. So instruction is do the best you can and then accept the outcome calmly because success failure is not in our hands. Other factors affect success failure.
Right.
Not Siddhi means not the occult power Siddhi, not that Siddhi.
No, I understand that. But you know, in the sloka number 12, he manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja.
Yeah. Success will come for the work that we do.
Okay, but it's okay. It's a little bit different from the way
Result will come for the work that we do.
Only if you do some work, you can get something. Yeah, siddhi or whatever.
If you do work with certain motivation to gain something, you'll generally gain that something.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, Swamiji.
Yeah,
I have a question. It's not related to what you're saying, but Kunti always said that Sri Krishna give me misery, so I will always remember you. And that seems to conflict with my thinking, Swamiji, because when one is miserable, one is radiating ill energy. Instead, she said, or, having positive energy, and yet give me the discipline to pray to you, have your grace. That seems a little bit more logical to me.
Kunti's prayer is very difficult. We can't all follow Kunti's prayer. She was saying that when a person is in distress, he is more likely to think about God.
Right.
If everything is comfortable, we don't think about God.
Right.
He said, if you keep me in trouble, I'll always thinking about you, praying for you. So that was Kunti's prayer. We don't have to say that Kunti's prayer. We don't have to pray for discomfort and pain. We can pray to God even when you are doing well.
Right. Yeah. I found that when I'm miserable, I run to God, but I made a promise to myself that Krishna, I will not forget you even when I'm happy. Remind me to do that. Give me the discipline, because that is our nature. Innate nature is to be happy, be blissful like God. So it's important to be that way, bring ourselves back up
We
from
have
the misery.
our inherent nature is Ananda.
Right.
The state of
Satchidananda.
misery is not our true nature.
Right.
It's a present aberration from the normal. Our natural state is Ananda. So let us pray for that one.
Yeah. Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you.
Anything else? Closing prayer?
Yeah.
Okay, let us say the closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid
Kaschit
Prabhag Bhavet Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Shanti.
Om. May all be happy.
May
May
all be
all be
happy.
free from diseases.
From diseases
May
and
all realize what is noble and auspicious. May no one be subject to misery. Om peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. May there be peace in very nature. Adi Devika Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. All of you stay well and stay in touch. By the grace of God, we shall see next week. Stay well.